Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Hello, Maverick family, and welcome new viewers from all over the world. The world is watching. And what a world we have. Things have changed. It is no longer politics as usual. The whole world has gone woke. Well, maybe half the world, 3/4. Don't know how to quite gauge it, but it has definitely gone woke. That is why so much has changed. And I'm not just talking about domestically, internationally. Things have gone woke, and it is playing out in very real ways in this conflict that we're seeing, this war between Israel and Hamas. It's a war of identity politics. It's victimology. It's everything we've been hearing for the past, number of years about colonialism. And man, it has changed the landscape in really serious ways. And it's new territory. I like to look back at history sometimes to see if there are solutions to problems that we're facing today. And we have faced these problems before. The politics right now, though, it's just a bit different. It's old ideologies, old political brands, labels, recycled with new language. And it's making it difficult for people to recognize what it is they're supporting and what it is they're opposed to. They can't quite figure things out. I include myself among everyone else. It has been very difficult to navigate through this. But as these wars have erupted and masks have come off some people and organizations, it is becoming a little easier to figure out what's going on. Tonight, I hope to provide a little bit more clarity for you. Maybe together we can make sense of some of this stuff. It's difficult. And I think things are going to get a lot worse before they get better, because so much of this is fueled by emotion and history that people I don't think they'll ever forget or forgive. It doesn't seem that way. And this conflict is being exported worldwide. It was exported a long time ago, but now in a more pronounced way. And some of the people, some of the prominent figures in this, so many people that I thought I knew or understood, public figures, maybe not personal friends or anything, but public figures that I thought I understood, maybe not so much. Maybe a little, some of them are being pretty disingenuous, some of them outright lying. It's politics. What do you expect, right? What do you expect? We're going to talk a fair bit about all of this: Israel, Gaza, Hamas, terrorism, the release of the hostages today, and where it is all going. Buckle up. The ride might get a little bit bumpy.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
I am back. Before we get into all of this stuff over there, which is also happening now over here, let's just update what's going on with that story about the car that got airborne and exploded on the Rainbow Bridge in Buffalo. So the names of the two people who were killed have now been released. And the names are 53-year-old Kirk Villani and his wife Monica. Authorities saying they are residents or were residents of Grand Island, New York. Niagara Falls police announced that today. We still don't really know very much about what happened. Police say that the couple had been planning to attend a KISS concert in Toronto on Wednesday, but the concert was canceled because Paul Stanley came down with the flu. So the Villanis then went to a casino near the border, according to CNN. And I'm not sure if that information about them going to the concert came from authorities or if that is information that is being distributed because of media reports. I'm just picking that up from other media reports. And apparently they were driving a Bentley. So, that's not a cheap car. This is an affluent family or an affluent couple, or maybe they just have a lot of debt. I don't know which. But a Bentley is an expensive car. It rammed into the border crossing along Niagara Falls. Of course, that's on the Canada-U.S. border. We showed you the footage of the car flying through the air. Pick it up again here. Hang on a second. While I do that, I'll show you the, well, here it is. Again, here's the footage of the explosion from the side.
Went in front of the car, hit the fence, went flying.
And the eyewitness report.
So we were walking up the road and we seen this car coming down towards the border. And he was flying over 100 miles an hour. There was a car in front of him. He swerved out, went in front of the car, hit the fence, went flying up into the air. He hit, I think there was a elevation part. He went up into the air and we just seen the fireball and that's all we could see. It was just covered in smoke everywhere.
So the car was coming from the U.S. into Canada or towards Canada?
Yes, it was going towards Canada, yes.
Okay. Did it actually hit towards the bridge? Where was that elevated area?
There was a fence there that fenced off around there. it looked like it hit part of the fence because it's all damaged.
Strange
And then
story.
it went elevated up, and then it went up into the air, and then it was just a fireball and smoke everywhere.
It's a very strange story still for me because one of the things I've noticed is pictures of these people not being used by mainstream media very much. I was able to get an image of the husband, Kurt Villani. There he is there. But the image, that picture not being used on any of the reports that I've seen so far today. And a picture of the wife, I can't confirm anything that I've been able to get a hold of. Can't confirm that I have the right picture of her, so I'm not showing it. It just seems strange that at this stage in the game, we're just not getting much more information, and that images of the deceased couple not really available. I just think the whole thing is weird. Could be some very logical explanations for everything, but the car traveling at a rate of speed, witnesses said close to 100 miles per hour, hitting a curb or something, becoming airborne, and not much left of the car. Now, at that speed, you crash, you get airborne, I'll give you this much. It's going to demolish the car. But even the wreckage looked to me like it had exploded, and there was a giant fireball. And I've seen cars burn and even blow up from gas tanks. It seemed weird. It just doesn't seem to fit somehow. But we'll wait for more information. That much I know from experience is always a wise thing. You want to be first whenever possible, but accurate without exception. That being said, we're all human, myself included, and I do make mistakes. I try to avoid that, which is why I try not to make statements that are not factual. And we saw the leader of the official opposition in Canada questioned about that because he used the phrase terrorism or terrorist in the House of Commons shortly after the incident was reported. And a reporter from Canadian Press tried to hold him to account on that. But of course, he had attributed that remark to mainstream media, which saved him. And he was then able to turn it back on the reporter and point out that it really wasn't his statement, his lone statement. But even though authorities came out shortly after and said that this was not an act of terrorism, that of course, was what was top of mind for so many people immediately. The first thing that popped into mind is this a terrorist attack? It had a lot of the earmarks of that, but we're told no, nothing to see here other than an accident. Don't know. Very, very strange. That's really all I can say. You know, here's a shot from the other angle showing the car getting airborne again. Here we go. Top left-hand corner. Pow. Here, I'll slow it down. 1/4 speed. Unbelievable. Look at how high. Look at the height that car reached. What would that can only be a few things. Suicide, a stuck accelerator pedal, some sort of mechanical malfunction. or another reason to intentionally crash the car. Holy smokes. The impact from that. And it's not exploding there. I don't know. That's the bottom line, is I just don't know what that is. Obviously a car, and you see it hits a curb right here. That's how it gets airborne. It's not a ramp. You can see that there's some sort of a median or island there with a curb around it and grass in the middle. You can see it hitting right there. The driver's side front left wheel hits first. Car gets a little bit sideways, elevated on the front corner. That's why when it went into the air, it already had the elevation on that side. And you can see it twist a little bit in the air. Now it's airborne, going straight up. And you can see it's got that momentum just turning to the side a bit. Unbelievable. Anyway, enough about that for tonight. Let's move on. Okay. Tell you what, let me take a quick break. We're going to come back. I'm going to show you what's going on with the release of those hostages from the Gaza Strip. And we're going to talk about other stories related to that, including the information war and where this is going legally. And it ain't looking good for Justin Trudeau and the Canadian government. I'll tell you that much. So stay with me. More ahead. Right after this.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
I'm back. So, yeah, hostages have been released. And we have an information war on our hands. No question about that. Here's ABC News. And I'm showing you this because the information war is at the heart of this whole thing. Make no mistake. And so the way they're reporting on this tonight is Israel Gaza live updates. Hamas releases total of 24 hostages. The release of hostages coincides with a pause in hostilities. Let's listen.
The Israeli military now says a group of hostages released by Hamas today have been returned to Israel. This is all part of a deal struck between Hamas and Israel. New video shows the Red Cross convoy passing through the Rafah border crossing. And Qatar's foreign minister now confirms 24 hostages were in this first group, 13 Israeli citizens, some of whom are dual citizens, 10 Thai citizens, and 1 Filipino citizen. Now, this is the first group of roughly 50 hostages expected to be released over the next 4 days. In exchange, Qatar says Israel has now released 39 Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails in the West Bank. But Israel is stressing that these developments do not signal the war is over. ABC News chief national correspondent Matt Gutman is tracking it all from Tel Aviv, Israel, where crowds are gathering and reacting to the news of this release of a first group of hostages. Matt?
Hey, Diane, we're in Hostage Square here. There are hundreds of people who are gathered here in what I would call sort of a
cautious celebration. I'm going to bring the camera in and raise it up. You can see people singing and dancing here in the center. They have received the news that those hostages are in the hands of Red Cross. They're now in Egypt, we are told by multiple Israeli sources, on their way to being brought into Israel. And it's there that they will be met by a specialized Israeli military unit with training and dealing with hostages. They have pre-programmed lines that they're supposed to talk about. They're not going to talk about what happened to anybody's family members. They'll say, you're safe, you're in good hands, we're going to get you to your loved ones. It's at that stage, right after they greet them, that they will give them a cursory medical check. They'll verify their identification. Israel doesn't know if the people who were on the list given by Hamas yesterday are the same people who they will be receiving today. And then they will be handed phones. They will be able to call their loved ones and speak to them for the first time in 49 very long days here. At that point, they'll be taken to hospitals around Israel, 6 of them. All the children will be brought to a single hospital, and that's where they will be united with their family members and get to see them for the first time. There will also be battalions of psychologists and other doctors on hand to help with what we understand is going to be significant trauma. Now, for the Palestinians, Israel says that it's already transferring 39 Palestinian prisoners in Israel's jails to the West Bank. They will actually be released once those hostages are on Israeli soil and confirmed. Now, it seems both sides right now are upholding the ceasefire, both sides living up to the commitments in this agreement. Israel has already received a list of the next batch of hostages for tomorrow. Everybody here, though, is still holding their breath, hoping that the next 4 days will actually pan out as planned and 50 hostages will be brought back here, and Hamas will get 150 Palestinian prisoners, and all that aid will be brought into Gaza. And you can hear the singing still picking up. People here are feeling this emotional letdown after 7 weeks of this massive tension over the hostages. Diane.
All right, Matt Gutman, nice to see a bright spot there at least.
So that was ABC. Kind of giving you the aerial view of what's going on there, essentially. Well, you know, over on Twitter, let's do a Twitter scroll. X. Still Twitter to me. It's a different focus. It's the other way around. The feed that I'm picking up anyway, the stuff that's being fed to me when I'm doing searches, it is all sort of pro-Palestinian with a little, not all, probably 80, 90% pro-Palestinian. And then, you know, I'll just show you. We'll just scroll down and you can gauge for yourself. Okay, I just typed in hostages released in the search. And what am I getting? And of course, the algorithm will be tailored to me based on things that I've searched for in the past. Your results may vary. So here's a teen hostage cries tears of joy after being released in the hostage exchange program. But this is not an Israeli hostage. This is a Palestinian who had been, I guess, held by the Israelis. Yeah, he's holding a Palestinian flag. And I think this is the same young man. Different angle, maybe. It looks like the same one. Maybe not. No. They say these are not children. Teens, yes. I don't know how old they are. I would say 16, 18 years of age. I'm just guessing. I don't know. Why were they in custody in Israel? I don't know. And here it is, breaking released Israeli hostage waves goodbye to their Palestinian on her way out of Gaza. Okay, so this is a
غزة وما زلنا نتابع خطوات
Israeli
التنفيذ
hostage.
تنفيذ اتفاق الهدنة بدأ في قطاع غزة وما زلنا نتابع
An
خطوات
old lady.
التنفيذ.
And tears of a child hostage released by Israeli forces today, it says. Child hostage is the way it's portrayed here. So that would be this guy with the beard, I guess. Or is it the other guy in the young kid in the black? I don't know which it is. It looked like they were all wearing these gray outfits, gray sweatsuits, sweatshirts and sweatpants. So I'm saying it's the older guy. And he's being greeted. It looks more like it's maybe brothers or a father with a son. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't tell which is which. Looks to me like it's the older fellow who was the hostage. See, because this guy's wearing the same outfit and he was released. It looks like all the hostages or prisoners, whatever you want to call them, who are being held by Israel, were wearing these gray prison outfits. Am I wrong? Or were they dressed in black? 16-year-old Palestinian hostage, it says, has been released. So he's got a jacket on. Is he wearing gray underneath? Looks like he's got a gray outfit on underneath, maybe. Yeah, see, he's got a gray sweatshirt on as well. So if they're wearing the gray outfits like that, then yeah, they would be the ones who were in custody. And here's another post. She says, this is Haneen Hassan. Post says, she was 16 when they snatched her from me. She's 24 now. I couldn't watch her fall asleep for 8 long years. Tonight she's sleeping in my arms. She's still my little baby. Time stopped for me. The mother of Mara, it says here, who was released today in the hostage swap. Free Palestine, it says. There's the image expanded for you. And more of that video. See, it's all Palestinian, another Palestinian video here. Is there any Israeli stuff? Another Palestinian released. And here's something that appears to be pro-Israel. So how many is that to this one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 posts to 1. And this was a pro-Israeli post. Okay. So that parade of vehicles goes on for a while. Obviously, they had the people being released there. And here's more pro-Palestinian posts. Mm-hmm. Another one. And this is from a news outlet. Vicegrad 24 says 9-year-old Ohad Munder was just released together with his mother Karen and grandmother Ruti. Hamas still holds his grandfather Avraham hostage. And this is a pro-Ukraine, pro-Israel post from somebody named Zoka, or I guess that's their handle anyway. And just posting a Sky News report. It says Sky News reporter during live interview caught telling lies comparing released Palestinian criminals with kidnapped hostages from Israel, including 2-year-old children. Well, let's listen.
Who is 16 or...
This is for 4 days, and you would agree that today was, given the circumstances, a success. We saw the ceasefire kick in at 7 o'clock, and then we saw the hostages released later in the afternoon. And of course, you have now released 39 Palestinian women and children. So,
can I argue, please? Can I argue? Sorry, I can't let that stand, because it's like they release children and we release children. I'm sorry, don't accept that. Here we have a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 9-year-old. How can you compare that with a minor who is 16 or 17 years old, who is involved in a stabbing attack or throwing a petrol bomb or the other acts of violence? You can say women and minors, but to compare that to the Israeli 2-year-old, I think is a bridge too far.
Well, no, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Regev, and there is a 14-year-old who has been released as well. So
what for? What was his charge? What was his charge? Did you look?
I don't know exactly.
Did he stab someone, or did he knife them, or did he just carry explosives for someone else? Once again, you're talking about innocent, young toddlers against teenagers manipulated by different terrorist organizations, but nevertheless involved in violence. That's why they're in jail.
So make of that what you will. And this is footage of, I guess, one of the first people to be released from Hamas earlier today. So as you can see, I would say it's heavily weighted in terms of the number of posts and the overall impact as well. Heavily weighted on the Palestinian side here. No question, when it comes to the information war, Israel is losing. And Biden doesn't seem to be faring much better either. Here's a post from some organization or person using the name RNC Research. It says here, Biden left his press conference in which he announced he had no idea when American citizens held hostage in Gaza would be released and immediately went shopping. Absolutely disgraceful. Well, he's looking for Black Friday deals, I guess. Black Friday deals. Breaking. Israelis fire tear gas at Palestinians waiting for the release of their hostages. Or so it says. Did they? Well, that's what the caption says, and people appears they're trying to walk away from smoke in the air. Oh, somebody doesn't like Biden. Jeez. Yeah, that about sums it up for him in terms of tonight's Twitter scroll. What else do we have here? Oh, yeah, we've seen that. So, and here's Biden at his news conference.
Today has been a product of a lot of hard work and weeks of personal engagement. From the moment Hamas kidnapped these people, I, along with my team, have worked around the clock to secure their release. We saw the first results of this effort with the release of 2 American hostages in late October, followed by the release of 2 Israeli hostages. I've consistently pressed for a pause in the fighting for 2 reasons: to accelerate and expand humanitarian assistance going into Gaza, and 2, to facilitate the release of hostages. And over the past several weeks, I've spoken repeatedly with the Emir of Qatar, the President Sisi of Egypt, and Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel to help secure this deal, to nail it down. And I want to thank all 3 leaders for their personal partnership to get this done. Today's release are the start of a process. We expect more hostages to be released tomorrow, and more the day after, and more the day after that. Over the next few days, we expect that dozens of hostages will be returned to their families. We also remember all those who are still being held and renew our commitment to work for their release as well. 2 American women and 1 4-year-old child, Abigail, who remains among those missing. We also will not stop until we get these hostages brought home. From the beginning, we put in place mechanisms to prevent Hamas from diverting these supplies. And we're continuing that effort to make sure aid gets to the people who need it. More than 200 trucks arrived at the crossing point in Egypt into Gaza today. These trucks carry food and medicine, as well as fuel and cooking gas. The fuel will be used not only to power the trucks delivering this life-saving supplies, but for desalinization, for water wells, for hospitals, and for bakeries. And hundreds more trucks are getting in position as well, ready to enter Gaza over the coming days to support the innocent Palestinians who are suffering greatly because of this war that Hamas has unleashed. Hamas doesn't give a damn about them. We also look to the future. As we look to the future, we have to end this cycle of violence in the Middle East. We need to renew our resolve to pursue this 2-state solution where Israelis and Palestinians can one day live side by side in a 2-state solution with equal measure of freedom and dignity.
And then there's this. The liberated child hostage, Asil al-Tayari, said, quote, "I salute the resistance and may Allah grant them victory," after her release as part of the first deal accomplished by the resistance, it says. And this is from somebody using the handle Warfare Analysis.
أنا شعوري لا يوصف إني أنا بين أهلي وبين ناسي، عن جد أنا فخورة بشعبي وبحيي المقاومة، الله ينصرهم، يعني عن جد إنه الله يحماهم، وللأسرى الله يفك أسرهم للي ضايل ورانا، إن شاء الله الفرج القريب لهم يكون بكرة. انصدمنا وبنفس الوقت فرحنا مع إنه كنا متوقعين إنه إحنا رح ننتصر بالنهاية.
And then here's one from somebody named Mike. And again, I'd say this is pro-Palestine. Another one. LMFAO. Israel is hiding the released hostages because when the last lot were freed, they said the resistance treated them well and condemned the Israeli government. Or so he says. You know, the public has a short memory. I wonder how many people are tonight even remembering what happened on October 7th. And more, another pro-Palestinian, another one. This is anti-Biden from an American criticizing Biden because no Americans have been released in this hostage swap, as they're calling it. And then what's this one here? This is somebody named Macau. Well, I'm so thankful some hostages were released, it says here. We must remember the IDF still has a lot of work to do in Gaza. We have to eradicate Hamas. And then he says, a nice video of Hamas cowards who surrendered. So there, that was one pro-Israeli one. But here's, I'd say this is got to be pro-Israeli. He says, here's a child prisoner who was just released already kissing the ground with his toxic green Hamas headband. Please paste this video on any idiotic tweet that compares Israeli toddler hostages to these newly released, and his words, terrorist fanatics. You can assess.
هذا المجد ثمنه غالي، هذا المجد ثمنه غالي، هذا المجد ثمنه غالي. الله أكبر، الله أكبر، الله أكبر.
Man, oh man, oh man, oh man. And it says the Israeli authorities have banned the released hostages and their families from communicating with the press or making any statements, at least for now. And you can see the footage here of the vehicles carrying the Israelis and others who were released by Hamas in this video. I think you can sort of understand why Israel would, at least for now, not allow media access. Hard to say what has happened to these folks while in captivity. No way to know. Here's a shot inside one of the vehicles. And as you can see, you have Filipinos, Thai nationals, not just Israeli citizens. Yeah, they're saying this young girl here waiting for her mother to be released from Israeli custody. And this is footage of the So you're getting the picture. So this is just social media, and yeah, everything being fed to me is probably 80, 85, maybe even 90% pro-Palestinian, maybe 90% online. So that gives you a sample. Now, what else can I tell you? I can tell you that I'm not the only one focused on this information war. Other media outlets. Well, right here. Here's one. ABC News saying exactly this. Amid Israel-Hamas conflict, it says here, information war plays out on social media. So they're focused on it as well. And I think they're aware that, the Palestinians are winning the PR, propaganda, information war, whatever you want to call it. It's interesting, this the pro-Palestinian side. You can't tell me this is entirely organic. It never was, not right from the beginning. This was choreographed right from the get-go. This whole thing was ready to roll since before October 7th. This was planned. Not just the attack on October 7th, but the protests with professionally made signs, the online, I'll call it propaganda. It was all ready to roll out, man. And they pushed all the right buttons, said all the right things and all the right posts to get people out into the streets protesting. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that that's just clear. It's clear as day to me that this was professionally orchestrated, choreographed. It says here, in the wake of Hamas's unprecedented surprise attack inside Israel, a battle is being waged on the streets of Gaza with guns and tanks following Israel's retaliatory bombing campaign. But at the same time, another clash is happening, one using tweets and shares. TikTokers, Instagram users, and others posting online from both sides of the war, including those witnessing the conflict up close in Gaza, are battling it out to win the social media war and influence public opinion worldwide, experts told ABC News. And it's particularly relevant in this instance, the military battle with Hamas. This is a quote, by the way, with Hamas and Israel is predetermined. Hamas can't defeat the IDF, the Israel Defense Force, and the IDF can't obliterate Hamas. So you have a wider battle. Let's call it an information war. David Petrikarkos, a war correspondent and author of the book War in 140 Characters, How Social Media is Shaping Conflict in the 21st Century, told ABC News. Yeah. No kidding. It's a war of information, propaganda, PR, trying to win people's opinions in the court of public opinion. In the court of public opinion. I think I just repeated myself. It's interesting, because this extends beyond Israel, Palestine, all the way over here to North America, to Turtle Island, which takes in, as I understand it, all of Canada, the United States, Central America, all the way down. It's all about colonialism. It's all about public relations. And these people protesting out in the streets, as I said before, a lot of these people, clearly the same ones who were out there protesting as part of the BLM demonstrations, the George Floyd demonstrations, you name it. You've got all those same people, the same left-wing, neoliberal, activist types. It's just true. That's who's aligned most what's the right word? They're all in on the Palestinian side. On the other side, you've got, I don't know who's on Israel's side right now. They've got a problem. There are some people, but their base of support is not clearly defined at this point. But I can see absolutely that the base of support is coming from socialists, left-wingers. It's strange because, as I said yesterday, the script has been flipped, A lot of this stuff doesn't really seem to make sense unless you really, really, really dig down and analyze the politics. It makes sense to me. I'm sort of getting it. You have very clear alliances that have been formed between the pro-Palestinian, between Palestine, Hamas, the Arab countries Muslim countries, Arab countries that are opposed to the United States, in opposition to. And because of that, you have Iran in there. And then you've got, by extension, I'm going to come right out and say it, you've got Russia. Well, they say that they're calling for peace. They're coming in, make no mistake, they're not really neutral in this at all. Their support, their loyalty lies with Palestine. China, not so sure. But Iran, Russia, yeah. I think just by default, Russia's on the Palestinian side because they're at odds with the United States and therefore with Israel. Because the United States and Israel are joined at the hip. It's just a fact. Or at least it's observable empirical evidence to support what I'm saying. And when we come back, I'm going to show you that some people calling for peace may not really mean it. And some very prominent people at that.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
So these wars, Ukraine, now Israel, Hamas, Palestine, attracting commentary from celebrities, activists, social media influencers like Roger Waters of Pink Floyd fame. But I don't know. When I listen to him, how can I say this in a responsible way? What he says and what he means might be slightly different things, because I'm finding conflict, contradiction in his statements. And he has a lot of followers worldwide, always speaking out for peace. He has had a lot to say about the conflict in Ukraine. Now he seems to have a lot to say about this too. Fair enough. And his opening statement in this video that I came across between him, it's him talking about what's going on in Gaza with Abby Martin. But the title of this is Roger Waters and Abby Martin on Gaza Genocide. That's the title. Okay, so it's her channel. She can put the title up. Okay. And initially, this is what the video starts off with. And this is all about information warfare, folks. So you have really a world famous media figure like Roger Waters. I'm just going to let this roll. And I have no issues with what he's saying here at all. In fact, I'm in total agreement with what he says here.
Not a pause. That is I mean, that would be better than nothing. No, it has to be a ceasefire forever. No more killing in the Holy Land.
Sure.
Ever.
Right.
By anyone.
Love it.
No more killing in the Holy Land ever by anyone. We are all equal and we all deserve equal human rights. That, Mr. Netanyahu, includes the people of Palestine.
Okay. No issues, really. I don't know why, though, he's directing that at Benjamin Netanyahu and not directing it as well at the leadership of Hamas. Nevertheless, he says no killing anymore by anyone in the Gaza Strip period. Okay, I can get behind that. But then he says this stuff. Abby Martin, gets on a roll, and I don't know. She's seeing. Do you really want like just a ceasefire and peace, or is it conditional? You know, it's like, if you just want a ceasefire and never have any more killing, okay, fine. But that's the question, isn't it? Really? It's like, I'm for peace, you're for peace, but are you for peace with the existence of Israel? Maybe just as it stands right now, with the borders defined where they are? Or what do you mean by you're for peace? Under what conditions then? Is it just everything stops, stays the same, whatever? You can negotiate, okay? But if you're for peace, you're for peace, right? I'd like to see all the killing stop too on both sides. And as I've said on this program, it's pretty clear to me that crimes have probably been committed by both sides. It's been a bloody battle. I haven't forgotten what happened on October 7th, and I'm still seeing what's going on in Gaza right now. And it's one thing, it's cool to sit there and say you want peace. But I'm not sure that people who are calling for peace are really interested in peace. It seems to me that people calling for peace so often call for peace or a ceasefire because they have strategic or political objectives that really don't have anything to do with peace. It's about regrouping, rearming, or whatever. And I don't think you can just have a permanent ceasefire unless you are willing to agree that Israel has a right to exist there. In any event, I'm just stating what the positions are on, or need to be on various sides. So Roger Waters over here saying no more killing, period. But then they get into this.
For the U.S. to maintain Israel as its partner.
Well, let us not forget that the ADL and Smoley Buttigieg told RFK that they were going to take any possible sniff of the presidency away from him if he didn't toe the line. And say, I cannot believe he believes all that bullshit about Israel that he spouts, because most of it is historically incorrect. All that nonsense about 1967 and how Israel was attacked by its Arab neighbors and in heroic way fought back.
Okay, so RFK Jr. has taken a lot of heat because he's come out and said that, Israel needs to be defended. And he made some comments about basically Israel being the United States ally in the Middle East, and came right out and talked about the strategic importance of Israel there militarily, which probably was not the wisest thing to say, which makes me kind of scratch my head and wonder why he actually said it. I have my own thoughts on that. But anyway, let us continue.
And got the Golan Heights and this. They weren't attacked. They attacked Egypt and Syria.
The whole Israeli project is based on Orwell. I mean, it's all projection of what they do to other people and cry victim. And it's the same with everything. I mean, you mentioned just being there and the atmosphere. I mean, you know how it is to go into the West Bank, the giant red signs saying you could be killed, enter at your own risk. It's like, yeah, by you. Yeah. By your soldiers. Like, I mean, Palestine is the most gorgeous place on earth. The people are the most hospitable people in the world.
What? Okay. They're the most hospitable people in the world. The most hospitable people in the world.
They welcome you with open arms. It's the soldiers. It's the settlers.
Really? They welcome you with open arms. Okay. So they're just loving, peace-loving people. They'll welcome you with open arms. You might want to take your vacation in Palestine because they're so loving.
Those are the people that are fanatical. And Roger, it kills me to see Israeli officials, as you mentioned, explicit about their genocidal intent. Very clearly. I have never seen so many Israeli media officials and politicians just laying out their genocidal aspirations as I have in the last month, juxtaposing that with Biden and all of these so-called liberals that are tiptoeing around the reality. They keep saying, "Oh, we need a humanitarian pause, Roger. Oh, well, we can't trust the Hamas-run health ministry." Well, look at Israeli media. They're saying every single death is correct. They're using Hamas death tolls and they're saying this is how many terrorists we've killed on a tracker live. If you're watching Israeli media and you have Democrats running cover for this genocide, it's sick and it's crazy. And why are we tiptoeing around what's actually happening here?
Yeah. Well, that's a very good question, isn't it? How because what's going on in Gaza, you can't, none of us can stop really to think about it, because if we do, we just burst into tears and we sit here all day crying our eyes out and saying, go away, pull yourself together. There's work to be done. You need to get out there again. Go out tomorrow. Get on social media. Keep telling people, keep dinning it into people that there's a genocide being committed on your brothers and sisters, the Palestinian people. And and it didn't start on October the 7th. And you can't, well, you can, they do. They try and blame everything on Hamas. Okay, but did some of Hamas commit war crimes? Probably. It's 75 years they've been.
Wait a minute. Probably? Probably. Did you watch the have you seen the video that Hamas shot on October 7th? Probably committed some crimes, war crimes, probably. Well, who did they kill? They weren't shooting soldiers.
On your brothers and sisters, the Palestinian people. And and it didn't start on October the 7th. And you can't, well, you can, they do. They try and blame everything on Hamas. Okay, but did some of Hamas commit war crimes? Probably. It's 75 years they've been occupied. You know, let's get this absolutely straight. And this is what they're trying to string me up on the lamppost for saying, is they have a legal and moral right to bear arms against the invader and the occupier of their land. There, I've said it again. Go and get the rope, string me up from the nearest lamppost. It's the truth.
That doesn't sound like what he said at the beginning of the video. They have the right and the moral right. Or did he say even obligation? Moral right. Let's roll it back.
You can, they do. They try and blame everything on Hamas. Okay, but did some of Hamas commit war crimes? Probably. It's 75 years they've been occupied. You know, let's get this absolutely straight. And this is what they're trying to string me up on the lamppost for saying, is they have a legal and moral right to bear arms against the invader and the occupier of their land. There, I've said it again.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a guy who wants just peace the way it is. Doesn't sound like he wants a ceasefire just the way it is. They have a legal and moral right to bear arms against their invader, which means he's cool with what they did on October 7th. I've heard other commentators say the same thing. Make no mistake, on October 7th, they went in there and they just shot innocent people. They killed innocent civilians. They just went in and killed innocent, unarmed civilians, mowed them down. I don't know, man. I'm not into that. I liked what he said at the beginning. Not so comfortable with what he says there. And I'm hearing a lot of people talk in those terms who claim that they're for peace. Doesn't sound like peace talk to me. Really uncomfortable with that. And then I take a look at, the politics behind statements like that, where these people come from, this influencer, who's that influencer aligned with, who are they sympathetic to, what have they been saying? And, it becomes very slanted, very biased. In fact, it becomes outright propaganda. That's information warfare too. You're watching it right there, as far as I'm concerned. And it just goes deeper and deeper. You think these Palestinians, as I said the other night, in my mind, I have this cliche of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip throwing rocks at tanks, as though that's all they have at their disposal to fight back with. But it's just not true. They have rockets, missiles, thousands of them. And they apparently are doing fairly well, according to some military analysts who have in recent days said that Hamas is losing the battle in Gaza and Israeli forces are suffering severe losses. Don't know. I'm not there. Don't think I trust the reports. Not trusting much of anything that's coming out of either side, honestly. I certainly don't trust those casualty or death counts coming from the health ministry out of Gaza, because so much has just been straight up propaganda, even artificially, images, video, even full videos generated through artificial intelligence, all designed to manipulate people's minds. And social media influencers coming down this way or that way. But, it's all meant to steer us. And sometimes people are saying things in ways that are sort of flipped upside down just to sway public opinion. And a lot of the actions taking place, I think, are designed to spill over geopolitically into other countries. I, for instance, don't think that it bothers or will bother or is bothering Russia, China, India, Brazil, South Africa, the BRICS nations, all in alignment, and these Middle Eastern countries either, to see all of these Palestinian refugees who are being refused entry into other countries in the Middle East. I don't think it bothers them at all to see them being shipped off to Canada, where the Prime Minister has agreed to take something like 500,000 more on top of our normal. Well, it's turned into almost 1 million new arrivals every year in this country. Immigrants, adding 500,000 additional Palestinians on top of what we already have. And we have a sizable Palestinian community here that has emerged, has been built up, even within the last 5 to 10 years. So much so that I think it has surprised people to see the size of the demonstrations that have erupted in the streets here as a result of the conflict this time in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas. And for the underdog in this conflict, Palestine seems to be doing very, very well, especially in the court of public opinion and on the information warfare front. So well that they seem to have time to actually choreograph street dances, which are doubling as public protest, and doing it in a way that They have elaborate video productions made of it to share on social media with drone footage, multi-camera angles shooting it, all in full high definition. This is on the, this is out of Toronto. Is this the Gardner Expressway? Could be. Yeah, it's right near downtown. Look what they did here, blocking the traffic.
This is on behalf of everybody in Toronto for Palestine. We're showing solidarity with them. This action is only taking 4 minutes. We're not here to disturb anybody. We just wanted to show solidarity, and we're going to be on our way. 4 minutes, that's it.
Remember your brothers and sisters in Palestine, and to say that we will never, ever give an inch away from this land. When they know young brothers and sisters like yourself, who are so concerned about a matter they thought they made you forget it. But they are wrong, because as long as we live and as long as we breathe air, Palestine will never, ever be forgotten. And this is the message that we send clearly to the Zionist Israeli regime. No matter where we are, even if we are at the other side of the world or the other side of anywhere, Palestine will never ever be taken away from our hearts, because Palestine is in our hearts. You remembering Palestine, you gathering for Palestine, you thinking of Palestine, you thinking of the Palestinian people. Wallahi, this hurts your enemy more than a grenade, more than a rocket, more than a bullet, because this is their main target. They want you to forget it. They want you to be disattached from it. They want you to be away from it. And this gathering sends a very clear message to them. This will never ever happen.
Going to bring another 500,000 here. And I think they're missing the point. They're missing the point. And this is why bringing another 500,000 here will not solve the problem. It will only make the problem worse, in my opinion. Those people aren't in Palestine anymore. They're in Canada. They're in Canada. If your heart's still in Palestine and your mind is still in Palestine and you can't let go of that in a way that allows you to be here without blocking traffic here and disrupting the lives of people here, citizens who are not directly attached to government, they're just people living their lives. You're going to disrupt the traffic here, protest here, next to the CN Tower. You're in Canada. You got the golden ticket. You can protest. You can call for peace in Palestine. If you want to go back to Palestine at some point, if that's what you want to do, that's cool too. Whatever you want. But you're here, man. It's time to embrace that, because people are not blowing up houses here. For everyone's sake, I'd like to keep it that way. I don't want all of that turmoil brought here. because I don't want you to have to live in fear like that. I don't want anyone here, because there are a lot of Jewish people here, a lot of Israelis who live here too. And everyone's getting divided on this, and it's spilling over into the streets, and we're getting these protests. It's destabilizing. And it's clear to me that for many people who are focused on this because their heart is still in Palestine, their heads are still in Palestine, and their heads are also wrapped up in politics. And I'm not talking just about Canadian politics. I'm talking about global politics. This conflict is being brought to us here, courtesy of globalists, politicians, political activists, people in the shadows, people who would like to tear down Western society. And that's why yesterday, too, I showed you this news conference where a Palestinian lawyer acting on behalf of Palestinians now living in Canada who have relatives in Gaza, he's working on behalf of them, and they've served a letter of notice to Justin Trudeau and the Canadian federal government, notifying them of their intent to sue through the International Criminal Court with allegations of war crimes directed at Justin Trudeau and his liberal NDP supported government because of the financial and military aid that the Canadian government provides to Israel, and for the training and other support, military support, that Canada provides Israel, because they're saying that Israel committed war crimes in Gaza. And by extension, the Canadian government needs to be held accountable for that. And as I said yesterday, this may actually have real teeth to it, because Canada was among the first to create the ICC in 1998. And I believe it was 2002, the Rome Statute came into effect. And basically what Trudeau and the Canadian government is being accused of is, well, they're the accusations that I've already laid out. But more than that, it's about colonialism. The Israel-Hamas Palestine question is all about settlers, colonization, all going back to the Balfour Declaration, to the creation of Israel as a nation state, what happened after World War II, and it goes back to Britain and explorers, settlers coming to also North America and taking the land from the indigenous peoples here in Canada and the United States, but especially Canada, because this is, don't you know, Turtle Island. What is Turtle Island? I should bring up I'll bring up a map, but I'm going to let this young lady repeat what she said yesterday in this news conference, because I need you to pay attention, listen very closely to what she says about Palestine, Gaza, and Turtle Island. All three. Not just the conflict in Gaza, Turtle Island, she makes reference to here. That's Canada, the United States, Central America. I'll show you the map. It's a lot. Here she is. This is the midway point of the news conference from yesterday. She's coming up to the podium now. They're talking about suing the Canadian government in the International Criminal Court. This is in Ottawa. This broadcast on CPAC. This is not some bogus, flying, pie in the sky thing. This is very legitimate. And that's why it received some media attention, not very much, but some media attention yesterday. It's legit. Okay. This is a legit thing, not some pseudo law mumbo jumbo. This is the real deal.
For 46 days, the equivalent of 2 nuclear bombs worth of explosives have been dropped on 2 million civilians, including my family, with nowhere to go. Their only apparent crimes come down to the semantics of where they were born. To put it in perspective, the Gaza Strip is nearly the size of Gatineau Park. Hospitals, UN facilities, mosques, and churches, they're all targets. No place is safe. There is no sanctuary for them or anyone in Gaza. Basic means of survival have become impossibly inaccessible. My baby cousins have to be consoled with scraps of food and little to no drinking water as they are repeatedly displaced from home to crammed home, shelter to overflowing shelter, with no reprieve from the constant bombardment. Weeks go by and we don't know if our family members are alive. We have to scour the horrific images emerging from Gaza, hoping to catch a glimpse of their familiar faces. When we do manage to hear from them, we hear their voices numb with grief as they recount the names of our friends and relatives that they've had to bury with no time to mourn because this nightmare hasn't stopped. The sounds of bombs echo to no end in the background of every phone call that manages to go through. And when the phone line abruptly disconnects, our hearts stop with them. If we're lucky enough to say goodbye, we pray and hope this won't be the last time we hear from them. 24 days ago on October 30th, I stood here in this very room. I shared my story, spoke of my family, and I made a very simple demand. Calling for a ceasefire is the very bare minimum that Canada can do. 46 days later, when will your sentiments of grave concern turn to action? Hiding behind the smoke and mirrors of diplomacy will not absolve you of your complicity as you discredit yourself in our eyes. When referring to the Palestinian refugees violently displaced and dispossessed from their ancestral homeland 75 years ago, the first Israeli prime minister said that the old will die and the young will forget. Today, we know that despite the violent history of displacement on this very land, our young and old have only proven otherwise. Remembrance is embroidered in the very fabric of our being, and our remembrance only fuels our commitment to the truth from Turtle Island to Palestine. You may not care to learn the names of my family and the countless civilians killed simply because they are.
Did you hear that? From Turtle Island to Palestine. I'll roll it back.
To the truth from Turtle Island to Palestine. You may not care to learn the names of my family and the countless civilians killed simply because they are Palestinian, but your names will be immortalized as the signatories of their violent demise, and history will not be kind to you.
From Turtle Island to Palestine. Here's Turtle Island. Here's a map. So this is on a website called Decolonial Atlas. The Decolonial Atlas. This is about, this is Canada, the United States, down into Central America. says indigenous place names carry the stories of the land and its people, reflecting the unbroken relationships between them from the moment Columbus landed and christened San Salvador. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it's the erasure of indigenous peoples from colonial maps was deliberate. Reclaiming these names is part of a movement to revitalize endangered languages undo centuries of suppression and widespread misinformation and acknowledge unextinguished indigenous land tenure. This is all part of a wider campaign, if you want to call it that. And I think I do. I don't think I showed this map to you. Here we go. So here's a picture of the map. Turtle Island, and you can see Canada, the United States, Mexico, Central America, and it goes down further than that. There's some other examples of the map here. Let me bring this up. And this goes back to what I was talking about. Ooh, my goodness. Got to be 6, 8, 10 months ago. When I was highlighting the First Nations connections to protests, the freedom movement, and United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous Peoples. And it's no mistake that she made reference to Turtle Island, to Palestine. There's an ongoing concerted effort to connect the two. The colonization of Palestine in their eyes and the colonization of North America, all of Turtle Island as well. Everywhere that basically the monarchy went and explored and colonized or established colonies, that's colonized land. They want it back. Depending on who you talk to, some have, more, what would be the right word, extreme views on this than others. Some more moderate, some more extreme. How much of it do you want back? Some of these folks want all of it returned. I don't know how you resolve that in a peaceful way if you're one of the colonizers, like myself. Where would I go? You bring 500,000 Palestinians here who just got bombed out of their homes. And I think that the way Canadians tend to look at this is, gee, aren't you grateful that we let you come to our country? Like I just said moments ago. Is that insensitive? If someone just bombed your house, maybe killed some of your relatives, and then they said, well, you go live over in that country, just climb in this bus and we'll put you on a plane, we'll ship you over there. Just go live in Canada. Just get out of here. Go live in Canada. And then you arrive and the government says, here's some money. Here's some health care, whatever. You go get checked out by the doctor, and here's a shoebox apartment to get you started. And you can start your life over again over there in that densified, we've got a highly densified 15-minute city for you to live in over there. You can go live over there. And you're supposed to be grateful. And then you've got a bunch of Canadians like me sitting here saying, you got the golden ticket, which is true in many respects because it's a great place. But I also understand that your heart is still back in Palestine. And you view the Canadian government and the United States government as oppressors because they bombed you out of your house. And now you have to live here under their rule. So your mindset automatically is that you're oppressed. And you have to start your whole life all over again. And you're being told that you're supposed to be grateful and integrate into society. So what do? You get people in blocking traffic on the Gardiner Expressway. I get it. Does the government get it? Does bringing 500,000 folks here from Palestine make things better? I don't think so. You can give them a place to live and get them to start over again. And maybe, maybe they'll be happy, maybe not. I don't know. Like if somebody bombed my house and then told me to take a hike and I had to go live in some other country and start all over again, and you killed my parents or my dog, like I wouldn't be happy. But at the same time, if you're Jewish and or Israeli, you got people there in the Gaza Strip who came in and shot your sister and murdered your kid or something, like that ain't right either. But let's bring it here. We shouldn't be involved in anything over there that has anything to do with any kind of atrocity like that. And here's part of the problem. The tail's wagging the damn dog, has been wagging the damn dog for too long. The United States is the dog. The lobbyists, they're the tail. They've been exerting influence on politicians, lawmakers, policy makers, military people far too long. APAC, financial influence, buying the politicians. And there are hawks and there are doves in any administration, any government. You've got hawks and doves in the Israeli administration and Israeli government and Israeli bureaucracy. Some of them want to expand their land. They want to take over all of Palestine. Other ones, maybe not so much. It's a nuanced thing, but the United States has really they're the ones who hold the cards. And the politicians have been too corrupted, in my view. They could, and I think they have just here recently, finally. They've said, hey, enough is enough is enough is enough. Dial it back because you're losing the hearts and the minds of the people around the world, Israel. So you got to dial this back and you have to be surgical in what you're doing, not just bombing the living daylights out of the people in Gaza Strip. But at the same time, I also see the other side. And I see that it's a constant ongoing threat to Israel as well. Now, I'm trying not to take a side in this because I really do just want all the killing to stop. That's my personal position on this. My other position on it is we have to be very careful not to let this spill over into the rest of the world in a way that will be unresolvable, maybe for generations to come, and in a way that destabilizes other countries, maybe even all of Western society. And it's already happening. You're seeing it in the streets in protests and spilling over into violence on both sides, and people being forced to take sides. And the other thing that I'm also clearly seeing is external political forces, political opportunists taking advantage of this situation to further their political interests, their geopolitical interests. As I said, I don't think Russia minds at all seeing a wave of Palestinian immigration heading into Canada and the United States, because it clearly is destabilizing. And I think that given that we're really at war with Russia, China, as announced by the Canadian military just a couple of weeks ago, finally coming to the realization that, hey, we're engaged in fifth generation warfare with China and Russia, and we better acknowledge that. So they made a public statement about it. Okay. Yeah. Hello. Yeah, it's really happening. We are in World War III. It's just a different kind of war. And I would say the immigration that we're now being forced to sort of deal with is part of that. It's a consequence of the events unfolding in the Middle East. And I think our adversaries are sitting back saying, well, deal with that. Take that. How many of these folks are going to Russia from Palestine? Are they taking any? I don't know. My guess is not many, if any. And a lot of these other countries in the Middle East are saying, no, we don't want them. And you see, that's why Canada's damned if we do, damned if we don't. We always are, aren't we? Because we spend too much time playing both sides off against the middle. That's what our politicians keep doing. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, we're supporting Israel, but we'll take all the Palestinian refugees. Oh, we're going to give money to Israel to support them and keep them secure, but we're also going to give money to the Palestinian side and send in aid over there too. Oh, I feel good about myself now. I can go back to being a politician. Did it solve anything? No. Just kept things going. What a stupid game. And, you know, when I say political opportunists taking advantage of this, I can see very clearly who's lined up behind Palestine and, honestly, Hamas. And you know who it is? Neoliberal, woke progressives, hardline socialists, communists. And then, you know, you kind of come full circle and you'd think that you're kind of getting into some of the, you might even get some of the, no, not so much. It's the people on the left side of the political spectrum. And yet the script has been flipped because, isn't this weird? Hamas, I would say, their ideology is absolutely fascistic, even Nazi-like, and very anti-Jew. That's why over here, they've been declared a terrorist organization. And so now you have neoliberal progressive wokesters supporting the side that really wants to wipe Israel off the map and go after the Jews. Well, they call them Zionists. And I get what a Zionist is. And they're actually even different categories of Zionists, if you really want to get down into the nitty gritty of it. You know, there are some who see Zionism as being faith-based. You see just different degrees of Zionism, different kinds of Zionism, but all of it in an overarching way involves, you know, basically anybody that supports the creation, support the existence of Israel in the Holy Land. Those are the Zionists. But you see Jews in America who are left-wing neoliberal wokesters supporting the Palestinian side. Why would that be? Because it's their politics, not the religion. And it's in opposition to the US of A, because they support countries on the other side that are interested in destabilizing the West to further a hardline socialist or even communist agenda. That's why. Which is anti-USA, anti-capitalist, anti-monarchy, anti-colonialism. which ties right into neoliberal wokeism, the 1619 Project, the rewriting of history, which they're telling you is the real history, which extends into the tearing down of our monuments, of our statues, of our historical figures, going after all of our religious institutions on the Christian side. It's all the things that we've seen the left in our society engaging in all of those activities. And that's why they support Palestine, because that is a direct assault on Israel, which is a direct link to the United States, which is also about oil and power and money and the US dollar being supported by the it is the petrodollar. It isn't based on gold anymore. It's really propped up by demand for oil, which is tied to the value of the dollar because Saudi Arabia still forces people to buy oil in US currency. And in exchange, the United States provides military aid and protection in the Middle East for Saudi Arabia and Israel. And that's why RFK Jr. talked about Israel being an ally of the United States in the Middle East. And he came right out and said it. And it was probably one of the dumbest things he ever could have said, because just saying it is even more destabilizing, which makes me really wonder why the hell he did. Is this guy is he thinking before he speaks? And he seems to be pretty inconsistent on a lot of things. And that's very disruptive. Makes me wonder why. You'd think he's smarter than that, but maybe he's just super duper honest, which is a pretty rare thing in a politician, especially someone coming from such a historied political family. You'd think he'd understand the geopolitical implications of what he says with regard to something like that. Maybe not. I think he does understand the history. I don't think he's actually even necessarily all that far off base with his position on the issue. More to be said about that in future transmissions. But how do I know it's the support for Palestine is coming from that side of the political spectrum, the more I'd say entrenched or the further left side of the political spectrum? Because you can see it on their websites. Here's socialist.ca. Okay. Just look at the rhetoric. Look at what they write. Look at their newsletters, their news publications. Where are they at? Turtle Island to Palestine. Colonialism is a crime. You think I'm just making this crap up? Not necessarily crap. That's just a word that kind of came out. Didn't mean to use that word. I apologize for using that word in this context. I'm just, the point is, I've been talking about this for many months. I had to tell people that this is all tied into the United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous Peoples. And now you're seeing the extension of this. This is UNDRIP ties into this because it gives, if implemented in various countries around the world, which is what the intent of this United Nations Declaration is, it puts the power into the hands of indigenous peoples and basically returns land to them depending on how it's implemented. Now, it's not binding, a binding declaration, but it is in Canada now because in an effort to virtue signal to the extreme, the Canadian government has passed additional legislation to make it binding upon themselves. And so now UNDRIP is being integrated into Canadian law everywhere. Like, this is mind-blowing to me because not only is all of this UNDRIP stuff going on, and now, Canada looking back on it, creating the International Criminal Court, engaging with that with well over 120 other countries. And then the Rome Statute, which leaves the Canadian government open now to a lawsuit for war crimes, which have been executed potentially by another nation state simply because we've provided aid to that nation state, Israel. So if found guilty of a war crime, Justin Trudeau could go to jail along with all the people in the government, and it would reflect entirely on our country. Plus, it just adds more fuel to the fire as the Canadian government is trying to navigate through UNDRIP and return more sovereignty to First Nations peoples here. You're getting a flood of additional immigrants. And I've also pointed out that there is an effort ongoing right now to rewrite not just history, to rewrite history in a way that also shows that Palestinians actually have hereditary linkages because of ancient civilizations to the lands on Turtle Island, which means that if they come here, and this is actually maybe even dangerous to First Nations peoples here, if they're successful in connecting all those dots, and they probably will be, because we've already seen the success of projects like the 1619 Project through the New York Times in rewriting our history, saying that the United States actually started in 1619 with the arrival of the first slaves here, not 1776. And a lot of people adopting this, that's where this political ideology, this political mindset comes from. So if they're successful in doing that, this creates an environment of conflict, extreme conflict. And we're already seeing it in the streets. And the left is not going to let this go because they see this as an opportunity to disrupt even and also external our political adversaries like China and Russia through information warfare, through posts like this, through organizations like this, directly and even indirectly. They can disrupt society here using this. They don't have to create the problem. They just help it along by getting behind the Palestinian side, the Hamas side even, and using information warfare. They get their own social media influencers to help it along. And it does help it along when Roger Waters gets on there and lends his sympathetic voice to the cause of Palestine. Rightly or wrongly, I'm just telling you that that's the impact of what his comments will have. He says he wants peace, but he really is on the Palestinian side. He wants Palestine to basically win. I don't exactly know in his mind what his idea of winning would be, but some people would say wipe Israel right off the map. Others would say maybe something a lot less extreme than that. Whatever it is, though, it's clear he doesn't really want peace unless it involves some sort of victory for Palestine, because they have the legal and moral right to bear arms against their oppressor or their occupier or their colonizer or whatever it is you want to characterize it. But don't forget that if you're like me, you're a colonizer. I was born here, but in the eyes of UNDRIP and the United Nations, the globalists, some First Nations peoples, and these Palestinians, I'm just an occupier. And you too, if you're like me. So what are they going to do with us? I guess in the end, because everything was stolen, and I'm just extrapolating and theorizing, but we can war game this out. Where does it end up? I guess we have to give everything back and leave. I don't know. Is that where it goes? Pay reparations? To what degree? To what extent? I mean, I don't view things in quite that way. I see treaties. I see the history that I know. And certainly from a Canadian perspective, and I see that we've been making progress over many, many years to learn to live together in harmony and honor these treaties that we have in place, which are basically in effect because of the agreements that were made through our shared history, even fighting against America in the War of 1812. The history is complex, but the point is, we have nations within the nation of Canada, First Nations within the nation of Canada. But all of this stuff takes it right back to the beginning, wipes away everything that we've had. And actually, I think it threatens First Nations here because, as we've seen, as I've pointed out, there is a concerted effort underway right now to try to convince people that the history you think you know, or the history that maybe you do know, is not correct. They're in the process of, in a very Orwellian way, rewriting our history, which is what Abby Martin is accusing Israel of doing. But in reality, it's the left that is in the process of rewriting our history. It's right in front of us, and don't lose sight of that, because that's what they're doing. That's why they're tearing down all of the statues of our prime ministers. And that's why our churches have been burned to the ground as well. How many Christian churches were burned across Canada over the last few years? And how much truth is there in some of these assertions regarding First Nations oppressions, which we won't get into too much here tonight. Some truth, and then there's where it crosses the line into areas of propaganda, in my opinion. And without empirical data, without physical evidence, without documentation to support a lot of what we heard for a while about some of the genocide that has been perpetrated in Canada as well, I think the balance has been lost, because the objective is to destabilize, rewrite history, and then reinvent or reconstitute our entire society. And I think our political adversaries are sitting back honestly and laughing, because they see how well this has worked. Are you following what I'm saying? Without firing a shot, the objective is not to come in and to take over. The objective is simply disrupt and neutralize the enemy, neutralize the threat. Just by disrupting everything and convincing people that there should be no more support, military support, financial support for Israel. No more support at all for Ukraine. Pull that out. And then who wins? It's all about the money. These countries, these are proxy wars. Israel isn't just a proxy war, but Ukraine's sort of a proxy war. It's, see, I'm just, with regard to Ukraine, that's a whole other ball of wax. I don't want to get into all of that stuff too much tonight. But, I certainly see the objective there. And I know that none of that should have happened, didn't have to happen. The circumstances surrounding it are somewhat different, but the objective is still the same. Disrupt things here to eliminate the aid going there, Russia wins. Cut off the funding, Ukraine's defenseless. And Russia can have its way. I just want the killing to stop. That's my position. And I believe that Ukraine should have been left as a neutral country, as a buffer country, not in the real control of either side, and let them determine their own fate. That's my position on that. Others have different opinions. As a result of those other opinions, we're seeing a lot of people die there. But here's another publication, which is pro-Palestine, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And it's not just pro-Palestine, it is let's get all the land back from Turtle Island to Palestine. The struggle continues on 2023. What are the foundational myths of the U.S.? Who created them, it says here? And who do they erase and harm? For the past 53 years, United American Indians of New England and supporters have gathered on so-called Thanksgiving Day in Plymouth, Massachusetts, to ask these questions, confront settler mythologies, and commemorate a national day of mourning for the indigenous people murdered by settler colonialism and imperialism worldwide from Turtle Island to Palestine. The National Day of Mourning protest was founded by Wamsuta Frank James, an Aquinnah Wampanoag tribal member in 1970. Wamsuta had been invited by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to give a speech at a banquet commemorating the 350th anniversary of the arrival of the Pilgrims. And it goes on, of course, Indigenous pride and power. And what's the publication? Workers' World. Mundo Obrero Workers' World. Workers and oppressed peoples of the world unite. Communists. Okay, fair enough. Just saying. That's who supports it. And Choosy, one of our Maverick family. You're going to love this one, my friend. Because this is all about the Knights of Malta. No, it's not a conspiracy theory, and no, it's not wackadoodle stuff. This is the real deal, folks. This is the Knights of Malta taking a side on this very issue. Order of Malta, Canadian Association. Statement at the United Nations General Assembly, Third Committee. On October 11th of this month, Marissa Del Rosario Blackett, counselor of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta's Permanent Observer Mission to the United Nations, delivered an intervention to the Third Committee of the United Nations General Assembly. The Third Committee is one of the 6 main committees at the General Assembly. It deals with human rights, humanitarian affairs, and social matters. This all sounds very lofty and like a good cause, but let us go on. Ms. Del Rosario Blackett spoke about the rights of Indigenous peoples, stressing their crucial role in promoting justice, environmental sustainability, and global harmony. She highlighted the historical challenges they face, including discrimination and land dispossession, while recognizing their importance as stewards of ecological knowledge for sustainable resource management, biodiversity preservation, and climate change mitigation. Sounds pretty woke and pretty cliched, portraying First Nations peoples as, I would say almost spiritual stewards, protectors of the environment. I'm not so sure that that's entirely accurate. I think human beings are pretty much human beings. Ms. Del Rosario Blackett emphasized the role of Indigenous communities in climate change adaptation, advocating for the integration of their knowledge into global responses. She also addressed the pandemic's disproportionate impact on Indigenous communities and highlighted the work of Malteser International Americas with the Wayu people in Colombia and Venezuela. Ms. Del Rosario Blaquette emphasized the link between Indigenous well-being and planetary health, advocating for environmental stewardship and social justice. It goes on, talking about things that sound very much like Agenda 2030. Says we know that the promotion of the rights of Indigenous peoples is a matter of justice, environmental sustainability, and global harmony. And if you scroll down, you'll also see here that they make a direct reference here to UNDRIP. It says this approach aligns with the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which emphasizes the importance of informed consent on matters that affect Indigenous communities. In other words, anything that goes on in government, there must be consultation with Indigenous peoples on the land. Fair enough. But UNDRIP goes steps further than that. And the Knights of Malta are here endorsing this globalist approach to governance. The well-being of Indigenous peoples is intrinsically linked, it says here, to the well-being of our planet. We must not only recognize their environmental stewardship, but in doing this, it is imperative that we advance their human rights and their demand for social justice, which I think in the eyes of many and in the opinion of many on this side of the political spectrum includes reparations.
I give the floor to the Sovereign Order of Malta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We know that the promotion of the rights of Indigenous peoples is a matter of justice, environmental sustainability, and global harmony. Indigenous communities have endured systematic discrimination, repudiation, and dispossession of their ancestral homes and resources. Yet, their traditional knowledge and practices have made them essential stewards of valuable ecologic knowledge, contributing to the sustainable resource management, biodiversity preservation, and climate change mitigation. Those who reside in areas most vulnerable to global warming and environmental degradation have been in the front lines of climate change impact and have gained valuable insights into adaptation and mitigation strategies. Our response to climate change, therefore, must include their knowledge and sustainable practices. It is our responsibility to support them in their pursuit for self-determination, cultural preservation, and the protection of their ancestral lands. Furthermore, the COVID-19 pandemic has disproportionately increased the vulnerabilities of Indigenous communities. It is also our responsibility to ensure that targeted policies are implemented to address the inequalities in their access to healthcare, education, and economic opportunities. In this regard, since 2014, the Humanitarian Relief Division of the Sovereign Order of Malta, Malteser International Americas, has worked tirelessly with the Indigenous Wayu people in northern Colombia, whose ancestral lands stretch across both Colombia and Venezuela. During the COVID pandemic, they conducted training on water, sanitation, hygiene, wash, and repaired water tanks. Through mobile health brigades, they provide quality health care and nutrition to children under 5 and pregnant mothers, addressing the alarming malnutrition rates in the region. In addition, as part of their commitment to capacity building within the grassroots Indigenous organizations, Malteser International Americas established the first mental health clinic, the Centro Básico de Salud Mental, in partnership with IPSI and Ashiwaya. By empowering these communities to lead their own success, Malteser International Americas is fostering lasting and sustainable development. This approach aligns with the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which emphasizes the importance of informed consent on matters that affect Indigenous communities. The well-being of Indigenous peoples is intrinsically linked to the well-being of our planet. We must not only ensure their environmental stewardship, But in doing this, it is imperative that we advance their human rights and their demand for social justice. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Knights of Malta. See, when I'm listening to that stuff, when I see what's going on, I don't think this is in the best interests of Palestinians. I don't think this is in the best interests of First Nations peoples in Canada or the United States or anywhere else along what is the expanse of Turtle Island. I don't think this is in the best interests of Jewish people. I don't think this is in the best interests of Israel. I think this is just destabilizing all the way across the board. I see a lot of manipulation. I see a globalist agenda that isn't good for anybody, at least not for regular people. I see foreign governments trying to take advantage of this. Don't forget, okay, it's not just the United States that is part of the United Nations. Russia's in there too. They're both part of the United Nations. China, Canada, all these countries. It's the United Nations. And that's where this stuff comes from. Not all of them line up, and they're adversaries, to be sure. We've got all these different interests. And then you have just political activists with trying to promote political ideologies or political agendas because they're trying to gain power, whether it's a political party, a populist party, or a communist party. So they're all getting involved to one degree or another, trying to move those information snowballs that are running down the hill as part of this information warfare. When they see one that kind of is, going in the direction that they want it to go in, they'll throw another post on it and make it even bigger and let that roll further down the hill in order to influence public opinion one way or the other and disrupt and distort and convince and persuade. What a game. What an interesting game we're playing. And then we get things like this going on as a result. These guys, these people sit in their glass offices in ivory towers, pull strings. And then people come out and do this. Welcome to his, I guess that's England. Look at all the people in the street. That's a big protest. There's a protest there. Protests all the time, every day, 24/7 around the world now. Just an ongoing protest. No matter what country you're going to, what time of day. There's a I'm going to start a protest channel. Just be Protest Central, we'll call it. ProtestCentral.com. And we'll just run videos of protests from around the world 24/7. There's got to be fresh stuff constantly. Pick a place. There's got to be a protest going on somewhere. It's just been escalated to that point. Okay, so that one, there's that one. There's that. And then there's stuff like this. And I get pretty emotional on this show sometimes, but I got to tell you, this lady here, she really takes the prize for losing it. Okay, she was watching some pro-Palestinian videos, and this was what she posted on TikTok. I think it got lots of clicks.
That fucking video of the man kissing the little girl's eyes with the little poofs. I'm a Christian, right? My perspective on the Muslim faith is so forever changed. It's so powerful. I can't imagine. I saw videos of the little girl when she was alive. Her little voice. And I'm seeing videos of Palestinian hostages getting released. Little boys that have been in prison for years stolen from their childhoods. And this one boy, the first thing he did is he kissed his mother's hand. Fuck. Like, what the fuck? And people are like, oh, Israel's losing the PR war. Like, yeah, because people like me, fuck. Sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. I just feel called to make a video about this right now. I don't know why, but this is like so fucking embarrassing when it's like you see these Palestinian people putting their most vulnerable moments on camera. They can't even grieve in peace. That man, while he is preparing his daughter for burial on camera, and he's smiling because he knows that his daughter isn't
Well, I suppose we could just take that as we see it. Should we? She says it was really, really embarrassing to be that emotional. But she posted it anyway and left it up. I guess it was just a message that was so powerful and so important that it needs to be spread, right? It needed to be spread. So just take whatever comes from that. Like, I don't know, were people heaping abuse on her for crying? I don't know. Sure went viral though. Don't know. You know, it's not just communists. It's not just left-wing wokesters. It's anarchists too. They're chiming in. Anarchists, anarchistnews.org. Oh, what are they saying? Decolonization, Islam, Palestine, and as I've been trying to tell you since, 8-10 months ago, 6, I don't know. I can't keep track of the time. At least 8 months ago. I'm trying to tell you. Turtle Island. Palestine and Turtle Island. Decolonization, it says here on anarchistnews.org, decolonization is an inherently violent, yes, but it's also a spiritual act in restoring neocolonialism's disfiguring impact on the natives' racialized, sexualized, gendered, material, historical, symbolic, political, and spiritual relationship to our Mother Earth, non-human life and land that are also spiritual subjects, not objects. It says, while I understand many impulses in secularizing Palestine and claiming that it isn't a religious struggle, myself having been involved in a diasporic Palestinian organization for over 22 years in Turtle Island, I never agreed with this approach. Then was a time in which Hamas, under the command of Sheikh Yassin, was engaged in bombings, and a lot of diasporic Palestinians, Arabs and Muslims already contending with their settlerhood and 9/11's impact on Turtle Island, had and continued to have mixed feelings about Islam. I can't, it's so, the writing is so disjointed. It's just difficult. And it goes on, adopting a neoliberal human rights industrial approach to struggles which are problematic within themselves, given how they instantiate white enlightened supremacy. White enlightened supremacy. However, now, especially with all the effort spent over decades by many of us, the case is different, and continuing to secularize the conversation between highly problematic, it simultaneously allows room for a conflation between Judaism and Zionism, while also preserving pinkwashing Zionist inter-settler colonial attacks on Arabs, Muslims, and Palestinians in light of Hamas's sexism, queerphobia, authoritarianism, and at the same time blunts more nuanced Fanonian conversations on the psychoaffective violence that neocolonialism, neo-imperialism instill in those colonized, as well as the right to bear arms, not just from a secular perspective, but also a Muslim perspective that addresses jihad, struggle, and qital, the actual Quranic term for fighting or to go to war. The roots of the struggle for Palestine didn't begin in 1948. They go back to 1492. If one is genuinely keen on addressing the confluence of white supremacist, crusading Euro-American politics that evicted, murdered, and persecuted Muslims and Jews, who were referred to as savages and heathens prior to indigenous peoples across Abya Yala and Turtle Island, with Columbus's conquistador invasion, we must look to 1492's global religious and spiritual dimension if one wants to address anti-blackness in Zionist Israel and within predominantly Arab, South Asian, and Muslim society. Somebody's pretty pissed. Wow. You can't change the past. 1492 was in 1492, and we don't have a time machine. What we have is now. It's 2023. This is a new moment in history. In my estimation, folks, it's also an opportunity to do something different, to do something better, to do something that would benefit everyone. It's an opportunity. All these folks who are going to get a golden ticket to get out of the devastation, to get out of harm's way, they're going to come here. And it is a golden ticket. It's not just a new place to live. It's a new opportunity for them and for us. This is insane. I've been saying from the beginning, the only way to win is to not play their game. And when these folks get here, and for the folks who are already here, you can win, but you have to stop playing their game. You can leave your heart in Palestine, but grow a new one here. Love your neighbor. Love this country and help us build something better, something new, something still based on the ideals that made this place a place that people from around the world want to come to. A place of peace and opportunity, where you as an individual are important. Where you matter as a person, not divided into some identifiable group defined by those who seek to impose identity politics upon us. When I look at you, when I look at people, I see individuals. People, a person, each and every single one unique. Each of us capable. Each of us with the right to self-determination, with a broad degree of personal sovereignty in a free nation. It's an opportunity. I fear and I see that it is being squandered. Because people are picking sides. I just read you that. They're making it worse, these puppet masters. And I think they're doing it on purpose. And there are many puppet masters with different objectives, all working from above, each of them with their own objectives, right? Their own agendas. But in the end, it funnels us all to the same place. Kind of right back where we started. That's the trick. They're not trying to make it better. They're making it worse. Tragic. But we still have a choice. All I can do, folks, is sit here and point the stuff out, try to make people aware, show you the way I'm seeing it, and hope that it has some positive impact. I don't have all the answers. I don't even have all the information. Just some of this stuff is very obvious to me sitting here tonight. And over the last 2.5 hours, I hope I've been able to guide you, through a story that helps you make sense of this. I'm afraid. But I haven't lost all hope. Because history has shown that even in the darkest of times, somehow here in North America, in Canada, and the United States, we find a way to overcome. Make things better. And, it's because we sort of, I think, bounce back and forth as we go down this highway together. First we go to this side of the political spectrum and hit the guardrail, and then we kind of bounce back over and hit the other side, and we get these extremes, and we keep doing things and getting things wrong until we get them right. And I think we just went through in, my childhood and my teen years, we went through a period of unprecedented, I would say, prosperity and peace, even though there was conflict at the time. But here, I think we were kind of on the track to getting it right. It seemed to be like we were making progress anyway. But now I'm realizing that because human beings only live a short time, and I've only been here, a short time as a human being on this planet, I only have my personal experience, perspective, and education to draw upon. And so my frame of reference was during that unprecedented time. Now I'm realizing that that was what was unusual. That was not really normal. Desirable? Yes. Good? Yes. On the track to getting better? Yes. In many respects. But not normal. I think what we're going through now is closer to what is normal. Conflict, turmoil, even war. Just go back, look at history. It's just never ending with people. And now it's coming here in a way that it never has before. And we're fighting a new kind of war, a new fifth generation war, information war, in an information age, a post-industrial information age, digital information. This is just getting started. And we're not ready. Because the technology is also new, the techniques are also new. And we're going to talk about it here. We're going to keep talking about it. And we're going to keep dealing with this. And I'm going to keep on hoping. And I'm going to keep sitting in this chair. Maybe together we'll work it out somehow. We'll get there. We'll get there together. In the meantime, folks, love your neighbor. Especially your new neighbors. And if you're watching and you're new to Canada or you're new to the United States or you're heading this way, I hope you see that this is a grand opportunity for us all. And I hope we can live together in peace. I'll be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Love you guys. Catch you on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.